Welcome and thank you for joining us. You're listening to the Beyond 50 radio program. I'm Daniel Davis. Well, now that we've reached 2014, it's time for us to kick in some of those resolutions to help empower ourselves to have better lives than they were a year before. Many of us try to do it on our own through sheer willpower, but realize that after about a month, 2 months, maybe 3 months if you're lucky, you just kind of fall away and you find yourself back into the same pattern that got you to that same frustrating point that you're desperately trying to change. Perhaps we can go a little bit deeper and maybe use a little coaching. That's right. We're joining on the Beyond 50 radio program today with certified hypnotherapist. She's also a certified professional coach and a Reiki 2 practitioner. She spent more than 20 years, that's right, 20 years in the hospitality industry before she had an amazing shift that decided to change her into a different direction. I'd like to welcome to the Beyond 50 radio program today, hypnotherapist Krista King of Guided Lotus. Krista, how are you today?
I am doing great. I am so excited to be a part of the program and get this opportunity to reach out to your listeners.
You betcha. Now, what happened? I mean, it seemed to me you were pretty successful. You were with Marriott, Ritz-Carlton, you name it, Noble House. And after being the vice president of revenue management, I mean, that sounds like a pretty high position. You just got out of it. What happened?
Yeah, so I was definitely the career woman. Spent ever since I was 18 years old, got out of high school, got my degree, and it was just off and running. I focused on climbing the corporate ladder, and I saw some amazing successes in my career. But it was really starting to take its toll on me. And really, it was just, I was exhausted from navigating some of the politics that comes naturally in a corporate environment. I had zero work-life balance, and my personal relationships were just suffering. And I just kind of felt like I was at the end of my rope. So I literally Googled soul retreats and found an amazing outfit in Sedona, Arizona, where I could spend 5 days, worked with 10 different practitioners, and it completely shifted my life. Didn't realize it at the time, but several of my sessions involved hypnosis. They just didn't call it that. So yet another part of my journey is I had experienced it myself. And then by the end of 2012, I had received my certification and got my Reiki practitioner certification, and I also got a second coaching credential as well. So I took a 180 in life.
Well, it certainly sounds that way, and you had all the good life you were in, like you were talking about bureaucracy and politics. It seems like you spend more time trying to please other people to get advancement than actually being met on the merit of the work you're actually doing.
Right, and actually honoring who I was as a person and my soul and my soul's purpose. Absolutely.
So now, as you got started with hypnosis, what did you discover was interesting to you anyway about what you thought hypnosis was?
So what I thought hypnosis was and what it really is were two very different things, which is one of the reasons why I'm so excited to be on the show, because I really feel there's this opportunity to get the message out. It's not like it is on TV and in the movies.
And certainly at any of those ridiculous state fairs you might attend, too.
Right, exactly. So there is stage hypnosis. There is some of that for entertainment. But the real therapeutic type hypnosis has nothing to do with mind control. Really what it is it's getting to our subconscious level and getting us to reprogram things that aren't in our conscious mind. That there's actually this automatic part of our brain that's bigger in play and at work that we don't always pay attention to because we don't know to, because everything that we've learned deals with things on a conscious level.
That's the most powerful part, the driving force, so to speak.
That's right.
Talk about how you access this and the power that it holds to be able to make the changes people are interested in making.
Yeah, and I'll use some great examples, too. So the biggest thing with hypnosis is entering what's called a trance state, and that can be one of those scary terms. It's kind of like the zombie with the hands out. But it's
or a
really
person watching television, perhaps Meet the Kardashians or something like that.
Exactly. That could be a form of a trance state, most definitely, or even just the act of daydreaming Or if we ever find ourselves driving down the street and we're like, oh my gosh, I didn't even realize how I got here. Those are all forms of a trance state, and basically it's our mind very relaxed and razor focused on one thing, where we're kind of so caught up in that we're accessing that part of our brain, and everything then consciously around us kind of gets tuned out. And that's really the level that you want to work at.
What do you like most about as you practice hypnotherapy and work with people as far as the outcomes go? What has really surprised you, if anything?
I think when you're in your certification program, you learn and you hear how quickly results can happen. But to be able to actually experience that for yourself and then deliver that to people and have them transform so quickly and permanently, because you really are addressing it at their core, that's been the most kind of beautiful thing, and why I'm so passionate about getting the message out, because it is so transformative, and it really gets to the level that we need to operate on and shift, because we can do things consciously. And a great example of that is, I use myself and my own experience with hypnosis with weight loss. It was, okay, I know I need to eat right. I know I need to exercise. I put all that plan together, but why is it I'm procrastinating going to the gym, and why is it that I'm reaching for the cookie? I consciously know that's not what I want to do, yet it becomes automatic. And it really wasn't until I explored that through hypnosis that I even knew that I had a poor relationship with food, that I had discovered a way as a child to manage my emotions and soothe myself through food. So it wasn't until I did that work through hypnosis to really understand what was going on, then to be able to change it, then reprogram the subconscious. So now I'm reaching, I'm craving, I'm wanting a banana, an apple, vegetables versus some other things.
And did that take, when you said you went to explore it through hypnosis, what exactly does that mean?
So basically, I met with a practitioner for the first time who was recommended to me by my naturopath, where I was doing some great weight loss with her and getting my diet figured out, but I hadn't shifted my mind yet. So she recommended that I go work with a hypnotherapist, and I met with her one time. And that was certainly helpful. Then my next experience with hypnosis is when I worked with a group, and it was another weight loss group where we did some work. And that certainly helped as well. But it wasn't until I started my actual certification program and worked at Bastyr University, where I worked under Mary Lee LeBay, who actually has written books and teaches a client-centered approach. Meaning it wasn't until somebody was actually in dialogue with me to help me explore the root cause of it that I could understand and then make some permanent corrections, because everything was very much at the surface level.
Right. Now tell us, what did you discover about yourself that was causing this weight gain?
Well, we did, one of the techniques that we did is called regression to cause. So basically, let's go back and look at the last time you ate. What did you eat? What was going on? And so you take a look back and you see, oh, wow, yeah, I was stressed, or I was bored, or I was lonely, or I was overwhelmed, whatever it is, and those were the foods that I went to. You keep going down that line of questioning until you find that it was in childhood that I actually started some of those patterns, whether it was I'm upset and Mom gave me a cookie, or I'm all alone, and so I'm just going to go and eat because I'm bored. It wasn't until I saw those as a child that I could understand the healing work that needed to be done, which kind of leads me to another technique, which is called the inner child, where our current version of ourselves actually gets to do some healing work and have dialogue with that child version of us. It's actually easy for us to access those memories as a child and what was going on, to then be able to give that child some healing so that we as adults can move past it.
You know, I thought that would be important for our listeners to hear, because I was watching, it was one of those weight loss shows, but it wasn't The World's Biggest Loser, whatever they call that. This was actually more one-on-one, and really brought tears to my eyes through the whole thing, just because of the nature of what was happening. And It was about a woman who had actually peaked out at somewhere over 400 pounds. And you're looking at a woman who's just in her 20s. No, I think it was mid-20s. Anyway, so she's got this personal coach, and they said, okay, our goal is to get you to hit this ideal weight that you should be at for your age and your body size and so forth within a year. Okay, so it took some time to do this. But one of the fascinating parts was in the very beginning where one of her dreams was she always wanted to run on the beach, by the lifeguard towers because of watching the show Baywatch.
Uh-huh.
And so what he had her do was one of the first things was to run on the beach, to run from one lifeguard tower to the next. And these things are something like a quarter of a mile or something like that, half a mile away from each other. And running on the beach, as anybody's ever tried, realizes it isn't easy. But anyway, so she's cruising along, and he's kind of there along with her. Now imagine, this is a woman that's, just over 400 pounds running on the beach. And she gets probably about halfway, and she's running out of breath and really struggling. And he's kind of saying, come on, you can do it. Let's not quit. This is your dream you're chasing here. This is the beginning, And then she runs a little farther, and she just breaks down and cries and just really loses it. Because a reality, as you were talking about, a childhood memory came. She was actually adopted off at the age of, I think it was two or 3 years old. Pain of feeling rejected by these people who were supposed to love her, and be the parents, was there, that she just wasn't worthy, apparently. Adopted to, another set of parents who loved her and raised her dearly, and she still had that pain. So that journey was about her not only starting to make better decisions, as you were talking about with food and also exercise, but also coming to terms like, this is just something that happened. It doesn't make you any less. But you realize that all of her driving forces were from that old, almost hardwired program, as you were talking about.
Yes, that is absolutely correct. And how powerful. And what's interesting about that story, too, is just the act of, I'm sure she was so focused on that running. Mm-hmm. And that alone can be a form of a trance state where she was able to access that memory and that kind of root cause of what was going on with her physically.
Mm-hmm. And then to see the transformation, she hits the ideal weight, looks fantastic. She discovered she loves to run, ran a marathon, and just all these changes to feel better. But just imagine you're carrying that seed from that young, not even aware of what it really is, and you live out your whole life protecting yourself in ways that are just not very healthy.
Absolutely. And that's what typically happens with clients that come to me, is they understand consciously whatever they were doing is not working for them any longer, and they're ready to make that shift. But if we aren't aware that it came from someplace and we don't actually do that work to get to the root cause, that's why it keeps repeating itself, or it doesn't, quote-unquote, stick.
Mm-hmm. What has been for you, I guess, call them remarkable experiences with people that you've worked with?
I think the most remarkable example that I have is a client came in to quit smoking. Mm-hmm. And it was my first smoking cessation client. So we went through that session, and she had said to me, I want to refer my husband to you, but I don't think he's open to this. And I shared with her, definitely the client needs to be open to hypnosis. Otherwise, I don't want to waste anyone's time. But, just know that I offer a 30-minute consultation call, so he can call and if he wants to just ask questions or talk about it, great. Well, next thing I know, he signs up for a session because his wife's now gone a week without smoking, and this was several months ago. Mm-hmm. So he comes in, and he shared with me, he said, I'm pretty much a skeptic, but I'm open to it. I can see it working with my wife, and I want to give it a shot. So we had one session. He had half a cigarette between that session and the next, and then he hasn't had one since. And the two of them have been smoke-free for over 4 months.
And I'll say this to top that off, that's exactly how my mother quit smoking. She went to a hypnotist, and I think she went for a total of, and I'm guessing because this was years and years ago, I think it was like 5 sessions, not real expensive at all. And, she just quit smoking. She says, I just got to a point I lost my desire for it. I was like, right on.
Yeah, it's really amazing. So there's the physical thing that's happening with the nicotine, but more than that, we can get over the physical craving so much more quickly than we can the mental if we aren't addressing it at the subconscious level. So that's why it happens so quickly, because then we're breaking a lot of those patterns at our core that it's automatic.
Mm-hmm. Now, I know a lot of times people will have, as you were mentioning earlier in the program, a misconception of what hypnotism is. You've been to the state fairs and you've seen this guy, doing some of the silliest things where they get people to do things they probably consciously wouldn't do. But I had actually seen that. In fact, it was just last summer. We were out at a fair and they had this stage hypnotist guy. And I'd never really seen it before outside of maybe something on television. And I'm looking and I'm like, I'm just not buying this. I'm thinking these people here are acting, and it just didn't make any sense to me because it happened too easy. And I know that hypnotism can be very easy. I mean, it gets in there quick. I've had the experience, but to see this, it just didn't make any sense. How much of that really is just kind of silly nonsense?
So it's interesting. There is real stage hypnosis where people are actually put into a trance state that quickly and are that open to suggestibility. So those suggestions, cluck like a chicken, they're open to doing them because they are that suggestible.
Mm-hmm.
My understanding, and I haven't ever practiced this, nor would I ever, but my understanding is they actually do kind of like a little screening test and how they test for someone's suggestibility, this ability to just kind of go with it. So that's the first thing. Some of it is real. That's a real practice, and people can go into trance and be that open to suggestion that quickly. That's not the norm, though. And certainly, even those people that are taking those suggestions, they're still in full control. People will not do anything that goes outside of their moral kind of values and fabric. And certainly the kind of hypnosis that I practice is they are in full control the entire time. My clients know they could open their eyes and walk out and end the session. They also know that there's a very trusted space, so I practice a very client-centered approach, meaning I'm honoring exactly where the client is at every step of the way. I don't practice a ton of suggestion, meaning I'm not going to tell you what to think or believe, because I come from a place that you have the answers, the insight, the wisdom already within you. I'm just going to help you access that. I'm going to help you access what the real obstacles are, and I'm going to help you access what the best course of action is for you to kind of remove those and keep moving forward. Mm-hmm. And then certainly I'll reinforce them with some techniques that support that new line of thinking.
Tell us about some of that. Like, give me an example, for instance, with your smokers, how this happens. How many times do they see you, and then you talk about sort of the tools afterwards that you kind of arm them with to become successful.
Yeah, so we do this one technique called the control panel. So just imagine your eyes are closed, and I invite you to imagine a control panel in front of you with all sorts of buttons and knobs and switches and lights, almost like what, an airplane pilot would see. And every single one of those buttons, switch, knobs controls a different part of your life. So, for example, with someone that's smoking, I'd ask them to visualize, find in your control panel where the dial is that controls your cravings. And then I invite them to really focus on that dial and ask them to describe it to me. Tell me the size of it. Tell me the shape of it. Tell me what it's made out of, what color it is. And then I ask them to see just kind of the numbers around it as if it's the dial on a radio, the volume. So you've got everything from 0 to 10. And I ask them, okay, look at that, and where's your craving right now? And without a doubt, the craving is usually somewhere around 8 to 10. And I just invite them to reach out to the dial and visualize turning the dial down like they are on a radio.
Mm-hmm.
And they can turn it all the way down to off and remove that craving, because just the act of turning that dial is controlling the actual physical response. And what's beautiful about that is then I invite them to practice that anytime they need to between sessions to help manage their cravings. So I simply ask them to close their eyes, take a few deep breaths, imagine their control panel, find the dial that controls the craving, and turn it down. And what was really interesting, I had one client come back, and it was the same client that the gentleman, the husband, and he said, I got to tell you, that dial turned into a big, giant, like captain ship wheel. Well, I just, turned it down. And that's what's so cool about it is, for him, a little small dial on a control panel wasn't going to work. His mind created this amazing, powerful, huge wheel that he could then kind of turn that dial and that craving down. And that's really what he relied on between our sessions until he got through that physical craving.
Mm-hmm. Krista, on the program, we have actually approached we talk a lot about the mind and how it works and the power of subliminal suggestion. And when you talked, for instance, earlier about how you were struggling a little bit with weight because of how you ate food, and you take a look at, for instance, in our society today, and you're driving down any of our main streets and you find, at least, a fast food place of some sort or a market on almost every other block. And you realize all of the information that's coming at you, creating a lot of the sort of inner aggravation. You can see why Americans are one of the most obese nations on the planet, just due to the sheer fact that we're trying to manage stress that a lot of times comes at us from that isn't in our control.
Yeah, absolutely. There's that, and we also live in a society that's very pack it all in, fast-paced, go, go, go.
Mm-hmm.
And so a lot of times we'll deal with the practical realities in hypnosis of let's look at your priorities, because certainly there's more time. It takes more time to prepare a meal than it does to go through a drive-through. But when you get to the core of what's more important to you and what would you like to shift around in your priorities to make that happen.
Mm-hmm. The other thing, too, that is fascinating in looking at that context is the fact that we all seem to just be in a trance more often than we're actually aware of what's going on in front of us.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, absolutely. If we aren't just kind of, and I know we're talking a lot about losing weight and smoking, but they're really great analogies. Somebody finishes a meal that's a smoker, they go outside and smoke.
Mm-hmm.
There's a smoke break at such time. It's just automatic. Everything's so automatic. And if we really just stop, close our eyes, take a few deep breaths, and check in with what we're feeling and where we're feeling it and sensing it in our bodies, we'll get a lot of information on where to start our healing process and our change process.
I remember I was having, most of my life as I was allegedly diagnosed, if you will, and I say that very lightly, with ADHD, that I could be very impulsive and so forth. And I started paying attention to that, when it would come time to want something and how I would do whatever it would take to go and get it, and then that would relieve the stress I felt until I had it. And then finally, it's like, for instance, I could go to the supermarket with the intention of, let's say, buying a can of soda pop, and by the time I get home, I've got a carpet, I've got a television, I've got all these other things, but not the soda pop. That's how impulsive it was. But I started paying attention to what you're talking about, those feelings inside that were pulling me with those desires and saying, but do I really need that right now? Is it really that necessary? And you're so right how you can actually sort of do your own self-hypnosis if you just become more aware as you're talking about.
Yeah, absolutely. It's all about that being present and quieting the mind just like we do in a hypnosis session.
Mm-hmm. Now, how does someone, Krista, choose the right hypnotherapist?
The best thing you can do, if you're open to it or if you're new to it and you're just in a seeking phase, is just start Googling. Looking for practitioners that are in your area, look at their website, read their bio. I'm all about research, comparing where they're located, what's going to work for you. But most importantly, I always recommend find someone that offers a free consultation call, and they should all do this.
Mm-hmm.
They might not call it out that clearly, but you can always reach out to them and ask them, hey, do you do a free consultation call? Because that's really what's going to make you feel the safest and find a good match. It's trusting your intuition, trusting your gut, and actually getting your questions answered. Because they're different. They're all different. We all have a different style. We all have a different approach. And it's great to ask those questions and just say to them, hey, I'm new to this. I heard it's good. I have some questions. Can we talk through it? And then just listen to their tone and how they kind of manage through it, because we're all not a good fit for each other. But the more that you can find someone that feels right to you, that you feel comfortable with, that's going to be the most important thing that you can give yourself, because then when you actually have a session with them and you feel safe, you'll be more open to kind of, quote-unquote, going deeper and allowing the trance state to happen because you're with someone that you trust. And certainly, if you don't feel like that after a session, if you're just kind of sensing some resistance, just pay attention to that and start, reaching out again. And then certainly if you have friends that you trust that have been to someone that they can refer you to, that's always just another boost of confidence, because if your friend felt safe with them, well, then maybe you can too. The other thing that I like to share with clients is it's becoming more and more the norm for a practitioner to offer hypnosis via telephone or via Skype, if the client is open to it. Not every client wants to work that way, but the ones that are open to it, it can be just as effective. I've worked with clients literally all over the world, and it's great that we have technology that allows us to find the best fit. So really not letting location be the barrier, as long as you ask that hypnotist, are you comfortable doing this remotely? Do you have experience with that? And then not being afraid to ask for testimonials, reviews, or I'd like to talk to a real client that's worked with you and ask some questions as well, because any good practitioner is going to want to set you up with that. They want you to feel comfortable so that they can do their best as well.
Oh, there you go. And even though you're located in Portland, Oregon, as you said, you can actually work with someone anywhere in the world because of technology today.
That's right. I had a client that was in Australia that I worked with.
My
and
goodness.
It was great. Yeah, it was great.
So tell us, where can people find your website?
So they can go to www.guidedlotus.com.
Very good. Krista King, I am sure that people will be contacting you probably through the program because they've got some resolutions they need to get resolved.
Well, that's wonderful. I would love to be a part of their journey.
Well, thank you again, Krista, for sharing with us the myths and the realities of hypnotism. And I can say that I've tried it myself, and it's pretty effective stuff. Thanks for being on the program.
Thank you.
We also encourage you, the listeners out there, visit us at Beyond50Radio.com. That's right, the number 50, and find out what you can do to get signed up for our exclusive listener updates. I'm Daniel Davis. Thank you for joining us. This is the Beyond 50 Radio program, and remember, live your day past halfway.